Good evening, everybody. So tonight I was walking with a friend and thinking, boy, it was a long day at work, had a very busy weekend. I got a chance to talk to some lovely people, my very first live lectures this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. And thinking, you know what? There's a little bit more to life than just kale and really awesome, healthy foods and things like that. For example, bringing together relationships, talking to wonderful human beings about different things that they can do to stay healthy and just live it up a little bit, enjoy life. So how are some things that people can do to actually get some more fun in life or to enjoy life just a little bit more? And one of the key points to that is awareness, awareness, and more awareness. So, for example, one can be aware when they're having tea, like went to a local restaurant tonight and ordered some beautiful Chinese green tea. And of course, there's a part of my brain that's sitting there thinking, look at me, I'm having these wonderful polyphenols that are cancer fighting and really good for those gut bacteria. And then, of course, there's another part of me that's just sitting there thinking, what a wonderful cup of tea. And so having the ability to just kind of stay aware of some of these more ephemeral joys of life is something that can definitely be cultivated throughout the day. This morning we were having some issues with the computer system. Who has not had problems with their computer system at one point or another? And it was running a lot more slowly than usual. It really literally was click a button, wait, watch the little blue spinning circle, wait a few moments. Oh, wait, I can click another button, and then you click the next button, keep going. And about, I'd say, maybe a couple of years ago, when faced with a very slow system, I would have done exactly this. I probably would have gotten my blood pressure up. I would have been going, oh my gosh, I gotta get this stuff done, and was very, very frustrated. And in full honesty, I guess there was still a little bit of that going on, otherwise I might not even mention it. And instead, I made some conscious ideas to use that as an opportunity to practice what I preach. In other words, whether I press the button and get angry at the system, or whether I press the button and practice peace or practice feeling that inner joy or something, the result was going to be the same. It still was going to take 15 seconds for that little blue circle to do its spinning, and it made a very different kind of day. I mean, the place where I'm working right now is undergoing some construction, so people that are visiting will hear all sorts of whirring drills and banging noises and things along those lines. And again, it's one of those things where after a while, you working in this noisy environment, start to kind of get used to it after a little while. And really being mindful of what is my reaction to the phenomenon, what is the reaction to the events and the things that are happening around, and basically being able to choose some of those things to some degree. Now, it's not like that sort of thing happens immediately, right away, but there is kind of a way of building one's life to learn how to take whatever is being thrown in your direction, because I'm not going to go upstairs and tell the people, hey, you guys can't drill on this thing today because we're having clinic or something. But basically being able to learn how to ride the waves of life and be able to smile about it and laugh about it and see some bit of humor in the situation even. it just makes the day go by a little bit more easily and a little bit more freshly. Designing life in such a way that basically things flow better, that things go well. Cultivating relationships, cultivating friendships. So being able to spend a busy day and then walk down the street with a close friend is a wonderful kind of joy to be able to just kind of enjoy and cultivate. And life really is all about relationships. It's about people. It's being able to do something kind for another person, to be able to do a little something not just only for yourself but for other people as a whole. I gotta say that spending some time with the Fort Walton Beach Community Choir, and we got a great show coming up this year again, of course. So if anybody is a singer in the area that wants to come join, talk to me and I'll get you hooked up with our choir director. So, but it's just brings such a wonderful sense of community. We got a message on Friday evening, literally Friday evening, that a few hours the next day there was somebody who was having a special ceremony, and they wanted to have the group send a couple of people out there to just sing the national anthem so that they could have just a little bit better time during their ceremony as they were doing their thing. And just being able to go out there in the community and just spend a few minutes of time knowing that somebody else's day has gotten just a little bit brighter and a little bit happier because you had a little bit to give in whatever way that means for anybody to be able to give to other human beings. Just make the world a little bit happier, brighter place. So on those lines, you might have seen the new website that I've been working on, docrojo.com, which is an index of all the playlists and all the videos, and still working on the references section, so that will be built up a little bit as well, so that people who are not necessarily in the Facebook version of the group can also have full access to everything on there. And it's a labor of love. It really is. Plucking away at the computer in the evenings, on the weekends, maybe 40 minutes here and there, to just put a couple of things together in the hopes that you guys all will benefit in some way from it. So, what do you do when you're tired? What do you do when you've had a long day and it's time to go get some dinner or to make dinner? And it's one of those things where everybody has different choices as to what to do. I could have decided to go out and drink a couple of beers or something, I guess. And I chose to go out and drink some green tea instead. Everybody has different kinds of things that bring them joy. And knowing as much about things that bring peace and happiness and well-being, also knowing a little bit of the consequences of what happens with different life choices, it makes it a little bit easier to, I don't know, just be able to relax and have fun. Although there's a lot of good information about things that are troublesome, life is not all about saying no to yourself all the time. It's not about kind of feeling deprived and wanting to do some of the things. I gave a presentation, and one of the people afterwards came up to me and says, "So much information, that was wonderful. Now I think I'll just go eat grass and drink water." Meaning like I'm going to go out and just have a bunch of salads and, and although it's always good to incorporate dark green leafy vegetables and in certain conditions, wheatgrass is a good addition. Getting the idea that a very healthy lifestyle is only about you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that, you shouldn't do that, and so forth is it's kind of not the message that necessarily want to give across. I mean, certainly in knowing some of the the common pitfalls or knowing where some of the troublemakers lie, it can make it a little bit easier to steer some of the decisions, because sometimes some of the things that give apparent pleasure today, like for example, if I were to get in the habit of knocking down a few beers every night or something, probably not likely to happen, but what if? Then maybe a few months later I might say, my waist is starting to get a little bit bigger. And maybe a few years later I'd start saying, uh-oh, look at these liver enzymes going up. And maybe a few decades later, if I really kept it up, I might start looking for a liver transplant and getting jaundice and like basically your eyeballs turning yellow and all sorts of problems from liver failure. And so knowing some of the long-term consequences of some of the habits makes it easier to make decisions in the short run that, if you're not a fan of, I'm just throwing green tea out as an example because it's very immediate to my life tonight, that choosing to drink water or some very simple things such as green tea, unsweetened without any of the artificial stuff on there. And then over time, you get a sense of, well, which ones of these things are going to be good for my happiness and good for my peace, good for my well-being, not just in this very moment when I want my instant gratification, but also over the years. So it's not all about having longevity, but also about enjoying that longevity. Because if I tell you you're going to live till forever if you sit there and eat grass and drink plain water without any flavor to it, then a lot of people are going to go running for the hills and not realizing, well, you know, what sometimes what people think that I'm talking about, what I'm actually saying, are two different things. That's one of the reasons why I very often will talk about the recipes, for example, at Dr. Barnard's nutritionmd.org, because his team has put together a wonderful menu of selections of 1,086 recipes that kind of give life to this. It also, thank you, Dr. Greger's group has put together a wonderful list of recipes for his How Not to Die book, and so it's the How Not to Die cookbook. And so, you know, my friend just brought me a strawberry, for example. So when taking a few moments to play, to dive into some of these concepts, to go ahead and soak in some of the information, it doesn't mean you gotta change your whole life. It doesn't mean you gotta give up your favorite grandma's chicken noodle soup or whatever it is that gives you joy and pleasure. But if over the years you find that indulging in, I'm going to pick on donuts now for a moment, indulging in donuts and brownies or ice cream, although it gives good momentary pleasure in that very moment, a few hours later you might start feeling heavy. Sometimes people feel a tremendous sense of guilt around their lifestyle choices, and that's kind of built into our culture a little bit. It encourages people to just go with your passions and go with your immediate whims and desires, and then afterwards, oh no, I shouldn't have done that. I feel guilty that I had whatever that thing was that I really didn't want to have, and that almost sets you up for doing that thing again, because we're pushing so hard against it that we're actually spending so much energy focused on the item that we're resisting. You know, it's kind of a funny paradox of some of these things. So there's a fun book, if you haven't had a chance to see it yet, called The Blue Zone Solution. And in it, their National Geographic sent this guy, I think his name is Dan Buettner or something like that, but he went around the world not just to look at what are people doing to mess up their lives kind of thing, but what are people doing to live to their hundreds? And there's these little pockets that he dubs blue zones all around the world where people are doing things well. And they're living not just to 100, but thriving into their 90s and the early centenarian years. And it's not just all about the food. Yes, there is a high proportion of plant foods in these people's lives. I think on average it was somewhere around 98% plants or something like that, if I remember right, from the graphs, because they literally map out the percentages of some of these different ingredients, so to say. But it also was about friendship and connection. And for example, in the group in Okinawa that they studied, they followed a lady who was going out and gardening every day and eating the sweet potatoes and the plants that she grew with her own hands. But also, they had this tradition where people would come together and be close friends from childhood onward. And if one person was having struggles, a relationship problem, somebody died in the family, anything, they knew that they had this small group of really close-knit friends that they could rely on for help, support, emotional connection, and so forth. In the, I think it was Greek or Italy, one of the Mediterranean countries that they brought up, it was also not just the food, but it was also the friends. I mean, this person that they followed would hike up and down the mountains and go spend some time sipping coffee with their best friend and engaging in conversation, the lost art of, talking to live human beings and such. Even in the clinic, some of you might know that I was planning to start my own dream clinic this summer, actually, and I've postponed that a little bit because the way that the organization that I'm working with just decided to revolutionize and reinvent the wheel, so to say, so that those of us that are working there can really dial down and focus on our little population of people that we're taking care of. And so it really is incorporating direct primary care in this larger group setting, so to say. So it's a wonderful thing. So I apologize to the few of you that were looking forward to seeing me in close relationship this summer, because that's going to be delayed by at least a few years at this point. So more on that later, I'm sure, when more comes out later on. But basically, that is one of the things that is also at the root of the physician-patient relationship, I guess, in my opinion. If people are having a barrier to one another, for example, in medical school, they teach you that if you wear a white coat and you put, I'm just going to grab things from around here, and you put some sort of a physical barrier, you have a bunch of folders on your desk between you and the person, it creates this appearance of distance, as though you're high and mighty and look at them down there, kind of thing. And people don't tend to listen as well to what you're trying to communicate if there's physical distance, if there's a height difference, if there's body language differences, if there's all of these things in between you and the person, then you also miss some of those communication cues. You might miss the body language, the expressions, and so forth. So, of course, life is an art. I'm still working on perfecting the art of medicine also. But there really is something to it, being able to incorporate things that you enjoy into life, being able to purposefully design life in such a way that it works better for you. Watching out for those things that, as you're practicing awareness of what's going on in here, what's going on in the foods that you're putting in, what's going on with the emotional life that you're living. And as you watch those emotions, if you're noticing, oh my gosh, a bunch of rage is coming up, a bunch of anger is coming up, frustration, all those little things that are a part of life, it's not that you're going to be able to go out and tackle every little thing in the world that is eliciting those things, but using each emotion, using each situation as a being able to understand yourself a little bit better, to be able to understand, oh, I'm annoyed by the drilling in the office because I have an expectation that a doctor's office should be quiet, for an example, just because, again, living in a construction site for the next, year and a half is just a fact of life that these noises are going to be a part of daily experience for a while. And by noticing the reactions to those things, you start to get a sense of what those hidden expectations are, and then being able to accept what's actually happening, and be able to, play with it, can make a difference. It can make a day between shouting at the little blue spinning circle and getting, oh, I can't believe my computers are so slow once again, versus, there's that little blue spinning circle. Now's a chance to practice what I preach. Now's a chance to practice joy, to practice happiness, to practice peace, and to watch how it changes the day is just a fun thing to play with. So anyway, I encourage everybody to find your passion, find your joys, and work on designing life to be in such a way that it just flows nicely and it flows more easily. And paying attention to all the little things around you. When you have your eyes wide open, it's amazing the new things that you can experience and enjoy. So also, speaking of awareness and witnessing and such, something like this, so having a strawberry, for example, here, you can focus on the texture, the coolness, the flavor, the aroma, basically taking every little thing in about it and savoring it. That's one of the things that people studied with happiness, for example, and the people who tended to report happiness more were practicing things such as savoring the joys of life, not just mindlessly, munching on something and, letting it come and go, but taking the time to really slow down and focus on it for a little while and appreciate things as well. So, what else is there to talk about tonight? And thank you for spending a few minutes this Monday evening, and it was lovely to be able to practice speaking in front of a group. Maybe over time I'll get to do a few more things in that venue over the years as it comes, and just find some way to spend a few moments to smile, to laugh. Maybe think of a way to make somebody close to you smile. Do something nice for somebody else, without them even knowing about it, for example. And just when each hand is washing the other, so to say, it's basically it makes the whole world a nicer place, a happier place, when we're taking care of one another and just looking out to see what can I do to be a little bit brighter light, or be a little bit of a joy, and be a little bit of peace and fun for other folks. So anyway, I look forward to spending some more time with you next week, and thank you for watching. Peace. Bye-bye.